MGoBlog are with us with Mr. MGoBlog himself, Brian Cook. Brian, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you, my friend. Seth Fisher, how are you?
The reason we look this tired is because we got a book out.
Hail to the Victors is out.
Hail the Victors exists. We did it. All of you who didn't believe we could get it done. It's out. It's so you can go on our site right now, mgoblog.com/hail22. And you can buy it for $15 online. Or right now we have a deal. You can get the t-shirt for this year, which is a Hurdle of Fools t-shirt. You get that plus the book plus a digital edition as soon as I see that you did it and send you the email for $50. And if we have any left after that deal, because we've sold about half of them already, then we'll put them on sale in the store, but not until we really have them in hand, which should be like at least a couple weeks.
Gotcha. All right. So highlights, you want to share some of them? Like what's some of the unique features that we'll see in this year's Hail to the Victors?
Oh man, well, Craig's in it. We got to start that off because we all know all the Craig fans. He did 1896, which is the year the Big Ten started. So if you can imagine how crazy things were getting in order to create the Big Ten, you've only half imagined it. There was also a game that year that they played indoors under the lights. It's like electricity is like brand new in 1893, and they're like 1896. We're like, okay, let's do this. Sapp wrote about Rick Leach. We got Tej Seth, who was from Pro Football Focus. He wrote about like how Michigan's incorporating analytics. And that one was pretty interesting, especially like the fourth down numbers and like how Michigan really kind of started going for it a lot more last year, a lot more than every other Big Ten team than Ohio State actually. And it was right, and they got a lot of value out of that. And he kind of shows where those decisions are coming from. Kyle Jones from 11 Warriors broke down kind of the metagame that's going on between Michigan's defense and Ohio State's offense. He like shows like, Don Brown really kind of solved Urban Meyer, and then Don Brown got solved by Ryan Day, and then Ryan Day kind of got solved by Mike McDonald. He just kind of shows how that interplay has been going on, and why Ohio State really can't have an answer to that right away because they've built this whole team around the same concepts that Michigan was attacking. And then Ian Boyd also gets in Michigan's defense, but more future looking, kind of, we've been talking about how they're going to be more amoeba and they're going to have to generate pass rush in different ways. And he really shows exactly what we mean by that. And how Michigan kind of dipped their toes in it last year. They didn't have to do a lot of it because they could just say, Aiden Ojabo, go. But Ian really kind of shows how that whole system works. I know I'm leaving a lot more. Adam Sheff talked about NIL. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, that is definitely talking about the defense. Definitely the buzz out that generating pass rush, the wrinkles that Jesse Minter added. I mean, talking to you get even from some of the offensive players, like, wow, man, that's pretty clever. I didn't see that coming. To being able to confuse blocking schemes and not know where pressure is coming from, he's achieving that. So,
yeah.
At any rate, let's talk about the news overnight. Ibiantoma, Brian, former 5-star kid out of Baltimore St. Francis, by way of Bama, Houston, and UT Martin, now a member of Michigan's football team. What do you make of that development?
I'm not really expecting fireworks here, because for one, he didn't participate in spring. He's missed most of fall camp. He's coming from the FCS level where he was a decent player. But I think Pro Football Focus had a 72 grade for him, which is not exactly Aiden Hutchinson territory. And then I don't know. I watched a couple of highlight reels from UT Martin games that happened to be on YouTube, and he didn't jump out to me. And that's at an FCS level. So, maybe he's able to get integrated, and then a month or two into the season, maybe have some sort of Josh Uche role where he's out there for pass rush on third downs or whatever. But honestly, unless he was hurt late in that season, I didn't see a whole lot that makes me think that he's going to jump in and be a big contributor. Now, he did have much better numbers midseason, and he dropped off, so the injury theory is possible. But yeah, I'm not expecting a big to do here.
Seth?
Yeah, I mean, like we can only analyze this from the football standpoint, and obviously there's a lot going on other than the football standpoint, right? Like he did this not on debate. He got kicked off the team at Alabama. He got kicked off the team at Houston, and that probably set his career back a lot because he didn't play in 2019 or 2020. He's practicing, obviously, but that's it's hard to come back from that. But you would expect a guy who's going to be an impact player, especially an impact player in, however many weeks. Like Michigan's schedule ramps up, so they don't really need him until October. But like even then, you would expect a guy who's going to be like a Mike Dana level player to have exploded against FCS competition.
Yeah.
Like it should be obvious. It should be like, okay, this guy is just so much, especially with his, he was not just a 5-star. He was ranked higher than Peppers. So like 2 years later, but like that was the level we're talking about, or like just under Rashawn Gary level. So for someone who had that much talent, you would expect there to be just like, okay, these guys can't stop him, and anytime he wants, he can go get a sack. The take kind of looks like Brian's right. They look like there's some motor issues. He wasn't starting. He was kind of like the backup edge guy. So maybe he was injured. Maybe there's other things going on. You hope that Michigan, with Biff here, his old coach, his old guy, that's going to make things better. Maybe but like all that stuff is just so hidden from us. They're not going to get into his psychology and like that kind of stuff with the fans. So from a football standpoint, I think I would like it much better if Michigan didn't seem like desperate on the edge this year for edge help. Like if they were bring this guy in saying like, look, we're going to spend a year getting him back on track. We're going to figure everything out. We're going to train him in the defense. And then next year you're going to see some fireworks. I like that idea much more than I like the idea of taking a guy and hoping that his natural talent that we haven't seen in 3 years is going to all of a sudden make a huge difference on this team.
See, I guess I don't see it as I don't see it as much of a risk. I think it's a very low risk with a reasonable reward on the other side if you can get it out of him. Because I remember this dude, and I was telling you guys off air. I remember when he was discovered as a prospect at Michigan's Baltimore satellite camp back in 2016. I mean, he was this basketball prospect out of Randallstown that even the Baltimore people, the Baltimore high school reporters, one guy from the Baltimore Sun didn't know who he was. It's like, who is this guy coming out here? Blur off the edge, but he was only like 190 pounds. So you had to see him get bigger. You had to see how he, when you took real contact, how would it translate? He goes to St. Francis. We saw him the next year at the Bowie State satellite camp, and he didn't work out, but he just was different. He was bigger physically. It really filled out. You could see the talent starting to translate into production on the field at St. Francis. But, as he rose as a prospect, you also start to hear some more things that eventually resulted in it not working out at Bama and not working out at Houston. So to me, between having other St. Francis guys here, having extreme familiarity with the head coach, because, again, he met Harbaugh, knew Harbaugh. Harbaugh is really one of the ones responsible for putting him on the map. And you have a year under your belt. You've been through a lot. You hope that he's matured. And there's no pressure for him to come in and be the guy, Seth. I mean, if he comes in and he does something great, maybe you can get Mike Dana level situational pass rush. If you don't, he's Jordan Whitley. And his case is much more like Jordan Whitley's than it is Mike Dana's, right? I know we're talking different positions, but Jordan Whitley was the same kind of guy, moved around a lot, was off the field some.
That's fine, but you got
issues.
nothing out of Jordan Whitley last year.
And that, but what did it hurt?
I don't mind it. I mean, I don't know what the scholarship situation is. I know that they're if he gets a scholarship, they're up 3 right now. But I mean, it's also plausible he's walking on. I don't know what the situation is because the school wasn't the one who announced it. The reason they found is someone on the message board just saw him in the student directory. That's how they realized he was on campus. The risk is, like you said, there were other things that got him kicked off of Bama, got him kicked off from Houston, and Michigan's got a really good locker room going on right now. And I think there's a thing in every single coach, and I'm sure Harbaugh falls in this too. Every coach of every sport ever looks at a guy and goes, man, see all that talent? I'm the guy who can access it. I'm a genius coach. I'm the one who knows how to get the best out of this guy. And I mean, everyone can develop some, but a lot of times what you're looking at is innate, right? Like Xavier Simpson is my favorite athlete for this example because like he just had that drive. Like Xavier Simpson, no matter who was coaching him, that guy was going to go and teach himself how to play basketball better and develop his skills. And it wasn't like he needed to have a great coach next to him. He was going to do that for himself. Aiden Hutchinson, Kwity Paye, like examples at that position are guys who kind of you didn't have to worry about that. And I think that is a lot more uh, a bigger part of what makes a great player than people realize. And like you said, there's no risk, fine, but unless he's not, if he comes in, he thinks he's supposed to get playing time immediately, and he's sitting there at the very bottom of the depth chart, and Derek Moore passes him again, and it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah. Look, as I have dug into sort of the fall camp rooms, I'm actually going to write about defense today. You hear a lot of confidence about what they are in the secondary, surprisingly, right? When you lose Brad Hawkins and of course Dax Hill, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you lose those guys. I mean, you lose your top edge rushers, but hearing some positive, really positive things about how they're doing against an offensive line that I expect to stand out. The one thing that I don't hear is about who is that one guy that's looking like he is an ace pass rusher. And they don't seem
Right.
to have that guy. They don't seem to be very concerned about it because they're generating pressure in different ways, as you say. But if you got an opportunity to maybe have a guy who just gives you natural pass rush ability, you throw him out on third down and say, and you pin your ears back, go get the quarterback. Man, you take a gamble on that if you feel good about Biff vouching for him, which had to have happened. I don't think that they make this move without that happening. I don't think they make that move absent Biff Poggi being on staff. I think
Oh,
you
of
add
course
that
not.
to the equation at the very least. You can be certain, or you can be confident that he won't be a locker room problem. If you tell me I got the chance to have a situational pass rusher and I very little chance of having a locker room problem if it doesn't work out, I'll take that risk.
Yeah, that's fine. I just, as a fan, I'm probably not paying as much attention to what's going. I'm not looking for his name as much
Yeah.
as I'm looking to see, like, is Derek Moore coming through,
You're
right?
100% correct. I tried to convey that this morning here in saying in offering. I feel like Mike saying to Mike Dana. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I feel like saying his ceiling as a Mike Dana level pass rusher or a situational pass rusher is like this huge deal. That would be an amazing development. The response I got is, "Oh, you're shortchanging the guy. This is a
Oh God,
6'6", 270-pound,
you're
5
shortchanging
star."
Mike Dana, man. That's that was a dude who, I mean, he destroyed MAC competition, and then it translated. He wasn't the same player against this level of competition, but like that guy went to the pros. But that's the thing. Dana was like a superstar to Pro Football
Right.
Focus, right? Like they had the numbers on him, and the only question was how much is that going to translate? Is he going to get stuck on elite tackles?
100%
And
correct again, Seth.
yeah,
And that's why I said his case talking about Ibiantoma is much closer to Jordan Whitley. Different position, mind you, but Jordan Whitley took a circuitous route to Michigan. There are a lot of off-field questions and motor questions and all those things that followed him to Michigan. This is a much more similar deal to that than Mike Dana. So to say, yeah, if he winds up being Mike Dana, they've won, and they won in a big way.
I do want to just point, like, I don't, like I said, we don't know the off field stuff. My wife works in that world and deals with a lot of kids who kind of get stuck in the system or get stuck with a reputation and then just get treated that way, and no one looks at what the problem is. Um, I don't know. I'm not going to say this guy's got a psychological issue. I'm saying
No,
that a lot of times people have a lot more potential than you think. And if Michigan's going to be in the business of every year bringing in a guy like Jordan Whitley, and it rescues his reputation, and he ends up with a Michigan graduate degree instead of wherever he was going to be. And these are guys that they know, and they know it has that kind of potential. I love that. If that's what's going on here, they should be doing that. And like you said, there's not a lot of risk for that. Like, you could end up with somebody who is 400 pounds and gets in the backfield. You could end up with a guy who is a top 3 overall recruit level talent who gives you like a back half of the season similar to Ojabo, at least in one area. But it's very unlikely.
I'm curious when you guys watch him, Brian, and I want both of you guys on this. I haven't seen his UT Martin tape. I can tell you, watching him in high school, he was a guy that had exceptional get off, like exceptional get off. That was one of the things that really stood out. Very, when it came to bending the edge, and I mean, very quick. From 0 to 10 or whatever metric you want to say. Very fast straight line speed or short area burst. Did you see any of that on film at any point?
Honestly, no. And it was to the point where I thought he was being coached like that for whatever reason. Like, it didn't even look like most of the time that he was trying to get an edge rush. So again, like, his stats in these games were like, 4 assisted tackles, 2 solo tackles. Not something where he had much of an impact. And then you look at what he was doing earlier in the year, and it's like, okay, maybe this wasn't him at 100%, because it was honestly very strange for both of his playing time, because he was all OVC, as we're talking about. So why wasn't he on the field most of the time in their playoff games? So yeah, I didn't really get much of a vibe from him, but the numbers don't add up. The play doesn't add up to me. So I'm hoping that there's some explanation for it other than, he just isn't the guy everybody says he is, which I don't think is true.
What did you guys say Pro Football Focus said about him?
Well, so they had him 10th on their list of edge prospects for the next NFL draft. And they're mostly just going on his reputation as a recruit, but they did mention that their season grade for him was a 72, which is middling. It's if Michigan has a weak side end who's a 72 this year from Pro Football Focus, that is not Chase Winovich. That is not Mike Dana. That is a guy.
Taylor Shaw.
Yeah, it's a replacement level player, basically. And that's at the FCS level. So their grading does not really encourage in terms of like what we're going to see here. Because Mike Dana, as Seth mentioned, he was an All-American to Pro Football Focus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was grading in the 90s. And so you're like, all right, well, we'll see if that translates. Now, does the 72 at the FCS level translate? No. Does this guy still have potential because of his ridiculous physical qualities? Yes. But coming in halfway through fall camp, it just feels like it's a bridge too far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see. Just manage your expectations. Manage your expectations. So, if you're asking me for a prediction, probably somewhere between Mike Dana and Jordan Whitley, but we can hope, right? Nothing wrong with hoping that he can be Mike Dana.
I don't want the fans to like get mad when this guy doesn't match his recruiting profile here. Okay, like that's not what's happening here. I think the Jordan Whitley comparison is probably the most likely scenario, and it's not always about whether you're going to get like a superstar. Like, there are ways you can get value out of a guy without getting the maximum value everyone thought they were going to get out of him. And like I said, if it really was a football thing, I would probably be more excited for next year than this year, because you need time. From whatever he was at UT Martin, he needs time to develop. Not to mention, Michigan's system is not an easy one.
Does
the
he
reason
have
you're going to see
another year?
So I don't know. I haven't gotten answers on eligibility questions yet.
So he had to sit out a transfer year because he transferred twice. And he didn't play in the COVID year, so he doesn't get an extra year for that because he didn't play.
But everyone gets an extra year from that. Yeah, everybody gets an extra year for 2020.
Okay, well then he should have a one more year.
Yeah, he's a junior fifth, as far as I know, because you get one red shirt, even if you're using it for a transfer. So his red shirt was 2019. He played in 2018 for Alabama, and enough that like he was named to the SEC All Freshman team. However,
With
PFF's
9
numbers were
tackles.
terrible for him. Yeah, like it was nothing. It was like 36, or maybe it was 90 snaps, and like maybe 10 of them were actually mattered snaps. But yeah, he played in 2018. He sat out 2019 because he was transferring to Houston. Sat out 2020 because he was transferring to UT Martin. Um, both of those become red shirts because 2020 is a red shirt for everybody, which would make him a junior slash fifth year player right now. So yeah, I mean he could be on the team next year as well. The same I think was true. There's several other guys who like you look at him and be like, yeah, how the heck does that guy still have eligibility next year? But they do. It's
Yeah,
it's
man,
this is
think about it.
2020. It's gonna be with us for a while.
Yeah, talking about a dude that I saw in 2016. It's like, man, that dude's still around. I was shocked to see that Ibiantoma still around.
Who's the linebacker who played for Cincinnati? Was it Antonio Kennard? Like
Uh,
Rodriguez recruited him, and like his eligibility was up last year, and I was like, what is going on?
Drew Singleton is applying to play this year for Rutgers. How long ago was that? I
Yeah.
remember watching Drew Singleton play with like what was it with Rashawn Gary's team
Hmm.
in the Big House when they were in high school. It's like that's that's how long ago that guy came to college, and yeah, he's still in the league. That's 2020 is gonna be with us a while.
All right, so guys, let's segue into this is gonna be the big question for Michigan football. Well into the season now, as we've all been predicting, the quarterback battle. We've all heard things about it. I wrote about it. Jim Harbaugh talked about it at length in the press conference yesterday. He laid out three scenarios. One guy pulls away and is the guy. The most likely scenario is this thing goes neck and neck and goes into the season, and we need some games to actually determine who the guy is, and that's how I think it's going to go. At this point, I'm curious what you guys have been hearing and how you guys think it'll play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to see a guy who was the starting quarterback for Big Ten champions to not enter the season as the starter. And like what at that point is the impetus to actually make a switch? And basically the only thing I can think of is that, you know, you're down like 13-7 to Iowa in the third quarter and you're just not moving the ball. And you're like, all right, well, we need JJ McCarthy to see if we can break this open. And then McCarthy goes and wins the game. That's the scenario that I think you see a switch is like Michigan is struggling in a game and they need a spark and McCarthy gives them that spark. Um, I've been going over Seth's UFRs in preparation for writing the season preview, and there's definitely a Jake Rudock vibe from McNamara's season, where first half of Jake Rudock's season at Michigan, he was really bad, and then he had a bye week and he took off. And you can definitely see that in Seth's charting. And so not only is he a guy who won the Big Ten, but his overall level of performance is probably underrated by the Pro Football Focus types because they're just taking the whole season. But if you look at the trajectory of that season, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, so I wrote about this the other day, my first day back from vacation, just digging into the quarterback battle to that point. And, what I was getting was that had been the better performer up to that point, not to the point where he was blowing the doors off in the competition, but that he had taken a step in the offseason and that you got to remember that JJ didn't play in the spring. I mean, he took mental reps, but there was some rust to work through. So you work
Yeah,
through
so
some
did
of the
I.
rust, and then you also have the other piece where he's gonna give you some wild moments, but then there are those times where he's gonna his arm is feeling good, and he's gonna try to see, can I get
Can
this in there, right? There's one or two times per practice where that was happening. And when you're going against a guy who takes great care of the football, that's going to stand out even more. That's not to say JJ's, you know, turnover prone or anything like it. I mean, dude had like 6 INTs his entire high school career. So
there
he's not
there are a
turning.
few weird dudes who are like superstars as sophomores, but even like Chad Henne, who was a robot, right? His he was a junior when he really broke out, right? Like his freshman year, they kept things super simple for him. Probably could have beaten Notre Dame if they hadn't, but like his freshman year was like, okay, throw to Braylon Edwards. And his sophomore year was like, okay, we're going to get Avant open for you, and you're going to get the ball there, and then we're just going to run a whole lot. And then his junior year was the real breakout. That's usually how it goes with quarterbacks, especially in a system where it takes just a lot of knowledge and a lot of like getting used to things. And even, Cade is 2 years older than him, even though they got the same eligibility because 2020 is weird. But like it took him until midway through last season to figure things out. So be a little bit patient, please. Like if JJ McCarthy is not seizing the reins, that doesn't mean it's not happening. Like
Well, see,
what you're seeing right now is what it looks like. What it happening looks like.
yeah, and look, that was a snapshot of practice through like 2.5 weeks. The last couple of practices, JJ he had wild practices, not wild moments. From Sunday scrimmage to the next day, those were like, I was told those were like two of his best practices. So he was at least starting to trend up. And I am still of the belief, this is my opinion. This is not any inside intel from any player or coach. This is strictly my opinion. And I want to qualify it as such. I think he's going to win the job in the season. I think he's going to continue to trend up, because there was definitely some rust to work off. You're competing against a guy who is better. Cade has stepped up his game, which you want to see. Makes the other guy raise his game too. But just all those traits that we see, and putting them on the move more, making those throws on the move. I just think that those playmaking skills, as they get deeper into the seasons, specifically Big Ten play, are going to be too hard to ignore. They know that both guys can win them 10 games. This is one thing one guy told me. Said both guys can win us 10 games. Who can win us 12? And I think that will be the assessment, that JJ can win them 12. That's what I think the conclusion they're going to reach. Now, they didn't tell me that, but that's what I think is going to happen.
I think it takes more to unseat Cade. And like the difference between like any 4-year starter you can name and what's going on here is Cade McNamara is a good quarterback. That's the piece that I think most people are forgetting here.
Right.
Cade McNamara came in and is a good quarterback. He didn't just win the Big Ten by handing the ball off. Like Brian said, his
wait.
He did. He did come around the second half, like Ryan said. But the other side of it, though, the very end of the season, you saw him against Georgia, and that's the thing. You need someone who's transcendent. You need somebody, if you're gonna break through a defense that level. And now we're talking about like what happens if Michigan gets the playoffs, or let's say they're in the Rose Bowl against a really good defense. You want a guy who's going to be able to break the system because he's so good. And that's what you get at the top level of quarterbacks. That's what we're waiting for JJ to become. Getting there takes a very long time, no matter how much talent you have. But like when you're saying who's going to win us 12 games, the guy you need to win 13 games or 14 games or 15 games is the guy who's going to be, there's no defense that can stop him. Because in the end, there's always going to be somebody with leverage, and he can get the ball there no matter where it is on the field, and no matter how good your pass rush is, he can escape it. And you got to commit resources to the run game, because any moment he could keep it and run down your throat. That kind of guy breaks the game, and they're waiting for JJ to become that. I still think that that's in the future, and at this point in his development, he's probably at the level where, like you said, you're probably like B plus level right now, and it's not worth it. Like the way you knock him off track is by getting him hurt or getting him hit a whole bunch. So, I mean, you got McNamara in there. McNamara is not losing the job at the beginning of the season because he won the Big Ten last season. The players like him. He's a good quarterback. So I keep coming back to this, but you're a team. You need both of these guys if you want to get what you want to get.
Yeah. So listen, I think that to get the best assessment of JJ, with him obviously doing better in practice, which word is, I mean, he wasn't doing poor. Let me frame this correctly. He wasn't doing poorly. It's that Cade had stepped his game up, and he was performing better and taking care of the ball at a better clip. So you give him the edge. At least that was what I was hearing, from the inside, not in any press conference. But now with him trending up, if you're going to make the determination to unseat a guy like that, I think it was you that said it, Brian. You can't unseat an incumbent who has stepped this game up in practice. You just cannot. You cannot do it. It's
Well,
going
I
to take
mean,
game. It's going to take games, and it's going to take games where JJ gets like a couple, 3-4 series in a row. Maybe one guy gets a quarter, and then the next guy gets the next quarter. You give him an opportunity where he's not looking over his shoulder and he's coming out, the next play or the next series. I think they have the luxury of being able to do just that in the first 4 games. I think you're going to see both guys get, equal or if not or close to equal snaps in those games, and that go a long way towards furthering their assessment of who the quarterback should be.
so one thing that jumped out from the analysis you were doing last year, Sam, is whenever you had Devin Gardner or Al Borges on, they were like, look at all, you got to take the shot. You got to take the
Yeah.
shot. Like, this guy's open. That's the design of the play, is to get this guy open. You got to take the shot.
Yeah.
And if McNamara does that, like if he stops being so fond of checkdowns and when there's a shot there, he's taking the shot. Because I got to tell you, these receivers are going to get open and they're going to catch the ball. Like, I've been going over Cornelius Johnson film and throw that man the ball. But if he can do that, like if he's not sort of inherently a conservative quarterback who's just going to check down more often than he should, then I think he can hold the job all year. Because one of the things that Pro Football Focus tracks is deep shot accuracy rate, and he was 5th in the country last year. So if he's actually taking the deep shots
Yeah,
with
the
his
ones he
hair,
threw, right.
then yeah, he can hold the job.
Yeah.
Because the ability to identify and hit those shots, like, that's going to be real hard to supplant, especially if he's able to keep those interceptions down, which he was excellent at last year. Like you mentioned, JJ only had 6 interceptions in high school, but yeah, there was some freshman stuff. And aside from that one interception against Ohio State, I don't think you can say that about McNamara. And for a first-year starter coming off the COVID year, who is basically in his, well, that technically he's a second-year starter, but the COVID year is like, meh. So I feel like that's encouraging, and he's not going to be JJ McCarthy, right? He's not going to be able to run zone reads very effectively. He's not going to throw it across his body 50 yards downfield to Dalen Baldwin in stride. That's not happening.
Mhm.
But the thing that can keep him ahead of JJ McCarthy is if he is Drew Brees, if he is Tom Brady, where his mental processing is at the level where, yeah, he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world. And he's not the fastest guy, but it just doesn't matter.
Can he be Aiden O'Connell? Why am I saying
Purdue's quarterback?
Well, here's what I mean by that. Let me bear with me. When both teams, they played Michigan State in back-to-back weeks last year against Michigan State. I think K threw for, what was it, like 373? Was the number that he threw for in that game?
I believe whatever it was. It was a lot. He had a great game that game. He threw across the middle in that game.
It was a good game. It was a good game, but that was one of the games that Borges and Devin really cited the most. Like, hey man, you gotta make this throw. You gotta make that throw. It seemed a bit harsh at the time to some, because he had just thrown for 370 yards. The next week, Aiden O'Connell threw for 536, right? And they won that game. And so, can you beat Aiden O'Connell? Can you take that leap this year? Because we know Michigan State, you could throw for 500 yards on that Michigan State defense last year. That was the kind of defense they had. Can you take more meat off the bone in the passing game this year? If he can do that, to your point, Brian, I agree. Then he'll hold on to the job if he can do that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that the other side of that argument is, like, if you look at Michigan's backs, they will benefit tremendously from a zone read game where you have to respect the quarterback, because they're lightning fast. And if you are playing an 11-on-11 run game, so there's one guy who's unblocked, who's probably a safety, like Blake Corum's going to dust that guy a lot. Donovan Edwards is going to dust that guy a lot. And so with Hassan Haskins, he can make 3-4 yards after contact. So the nature of your run game doesn't have to be as like, home run hitting, but if you have McCarthy absorbing guys, getting guys confused, pulling guys out of position, Michigan's backs are going to be perfect for taking advantage of that situation. So I can see it both ways, really, and it'll be interesting to see. Probably that Iowa game is when the rubber's really going to start hitting the road.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're late for a break, so let's take a break here. We'll come back on the other side with more MGoBlog Roundtable on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket.
And we are clear on the radio. And if you guys have not yet seen, the new TV contract has been released.
And what is
the media rights deal for billions of dollars for the Big Ten. That includes 4 of the next 7 Big Ten championship games will be on Fox, but the others will be on NBC or CBS. And the Big Ten women's basketball championship game will now air on CBS and be on network television for the first time. I'm just digging through. There's a whole lot of information with it, but some news out there for you. But in the meantime, everybody should go to mgoblog.com/hail22.
Oh, no.
Big Ten is projected to eventually distribute between $80 and $100 million per year to each school.
The word that leaps out on McMurphy's article to me is peacock.
Yeah, there are some streaming only games, but that's not the only. There are games that are not NBC has a lot of games on TV too, but they will be streaming some things too. They're yes, that is an interesting one, and there will be eventually some stuff on Paramount Plus too.
Although, if Peacock does Big Ten hockey the way they do Notre Dame hockey, I will happily subscribe. Like, I will be all over that because it's always like you get your Big Ten Plus.
By the way, he did not fumble in a crucial point in that game. He did not. that was not. How many times we got to go over this play?
Yeah, he did though. He fumbled.
Yeah, but why was it fumbled though?
No. There were 2 fumbles in that game.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got you. The one that went out of bounds.
The Corum one was not on him.
Yeah, that's the one this guy's talking about. He's talking about the one that Blake didn't know was a handoff or was supposed to be a handoff.
Right.
So
yeah, the Big Ten contract, like I can't get super excited about that. Like I love the fact that the program is going to get more money, yay! But where's that money coming from? It's more ads, and Fox packs more ads into a game than anybody. So,
man, I tell you, part of me is rooting for more games on CBS. I can't wait for the Big Ten championship game to be on CBS or NBC because, man, Fox, they're killing me with this the licensing to use footage for they want $65,000.
We're back in about a minute, guys. Seth, I know
$5,000 to do breakdowns.
But our rundowns for the games on the radio, depending upon the network, they don't change. Like our rundowns don't change. Like the formats don't actually change. They might throw in an extra network break here or there, but they don't actually change the formats for Michigan football on the radio are the same from game to game, and there's almost no variance. NBC is the one that actually sometimes gives variance when they play Notre Dame. But we have basically no different format. They might throw in an extra couple network breaks that don't impact what we do, but the formats actually are exactly the same.
Peacock's getting 8 football games a year and 32 to 47 basketball games.
That's a lot of Big Ten basketball games.
That's a lot of basketball games.
All right, guys, we're back in about 10 seconds.
So we don't have to look for any more games on the, B1G Plus? Is that going to go away?
Well, for basketball, I don't think that really happens, but
for some of those.
And now back to the newest Peacock subscribers on the MGoBlog Roundtable in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA online at WTK.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub on the other side. You hear me say all the time, work smarter, not harder. That's what you do when you go to Alta Equipment and rent the equipment you need to do big jobs. You can also purchase that compact construction equipment like compact excavators, skid steers, bark blowers, wheel loaders, and more. We had to rent a skid steer to grade the area next to my property. have the water run off into the common area instead of from the common area onto our property. Imagine if we had to do that by hand. That would have been ridiculous. So go and rent the equipment you need at Alta Equipment, Michigan's #1 construction equipment dealer, with more brands and more products to serve all of your home and construction needs. So don't wait for some old machines and big prices of one of those other companies. Go to Alta, give them a call, 844-GO-TO-ALTA. Again, 844-GO2 Alta, and tell them Sam sent you. All right, so let's get back to it, guys. Big news breaking this morning. Expected news at that, though, that the Big Ten media rights deal is done, and the numbers are huge. 7-year, $7 billion media rights deal. The Big Ten eventually expected to pay out $80 to $100 million per year to each of its 16 members. Your reaction, fellas?
I mean, these days, I don't. The numbers don't really matter to me that much because it's like they have enough money to keep all their coaches who want to stay because if they're not baseball coaches.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I mean, the Big Ten's a mid-major in baseball.
I know.
We
I'm the
all
one
know
who said it.
But what I'm looking at in Brett McMurphy's article about this is that there are 8 football games on Peacock annually and 32 to 47 basketball games. So part of the reason that you're getting this like record deal is because now there's a streaming service that is going to be, I'm not going to say mandatory for Michigan fans, because I don't think any of Michigan school football games are going to be on
Right.
Peacock. But for a lot of fans of the conference, are going to have to get that if they want all their stuff. So it's $5 a month. It's another drop in the bucket, but you see how that adds up.
Seth?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking for a long time about how this is all going to work out and how a la carte's going to happen, because like the whole cable system was destroyed by streaming, and the way it seems to be happening is big companies are jumping in and grabbing big chunks so that you have to subscribe to like every single service. So like, we're going to be Peacock subscribers now, I guess, because like I can't miss other Big Ten football games. Paramount Plus seems to be on there. Fortunately, I get that through 24/7. I think.
There you go. That's
So-
right. You get a membership over at the MichiganInsider.com. Or annual anyway. You automatically get Paramount Plus. So there you go.
That was a nice little perk. They like sent me a little reminder email, like, by the way, do you know you have this? And I go, great, I can watch Star Trek now. And my wife said, no, we can't. We're not watching Star Trek. She already sat through all TNG episodes. She's not doing it again. Anyway, like we're gonna
Mayor
be
of Kingstown.
subscribers.
Watch Mayor of Kingstown. That's a good one.
Okay.
That show is
Well,
great.
we're going to be subscribers of everything now, and that's where the money's coming from. The question with this, like, okay, wow, big number. It's not like money just kind of just appears, right? Someone's paying for it. It's not when they added Rutgers and they were going to like put the Big Ten network on the regular tier in New York metropolitan area because of it. The people paying for that was everyone who has cable in the New York metropolitan area. That's where the money came from. This time, the money's coming from people who have to subscribe to streaming services that they aren't subscribed to already, and probably more ads packed in there the way Fox does it. So, we're paying for this ultimately.
So already some questions coming in, and it gets to some other news items from earlier this week. So starting with this one. That's a ton of dough. Wow. What will Notre Dame do? So there was a report out of the Sports Business Journal earlier this week that had NBC ready to pay I think Notre Dame $60 million,
Correct.
right? And that there will be a part of this Big Ten media rights deal, and that would be the setup for Notre Dame playing more Big Ten teams, namely Michigan, sooner than 2033 that they're supposed to play. Do you anticipate this having that effect, NBC being a part of this media rights deal? And do you think Notre Dame looks at $60 million is enough to maintain independence?
I don't know. That's going to be up to them. Like, they just lost their head coach to LSU. So that's got to be a little bit of a flashing warning sign. They probably upgraded, though, so maybe they don't care very much. And, like, what does that do for the rest of their sports, and do they care about it? You know, like, ACC is a fine place to store your other sports, and they have a grant of rights that's 10 years down the road, so you don't have to worry about them disintegrating for a while. Long term, they might be unable to keep up with the Joneses, because that $40 million a year, if that gap is that large, then you're going to start getting facilities gaps, and you're not going to be able to retain all your coaches. And that's the point at which I think that they might have to make a decision, because
Brian, as Brian gets the Leo people just watch Brian get interrupted by the kid. Yeah, but he's right about the fact that they could end up forced into this. But what Notre Dame's doing, and Jack Swarbrick's been pretty much consistent on this, they find every single way to squirm out of joining the Big Ten. So every single time we've had like one of these instances where like, okay, now they have to join the Big Ten, they find a way, right? Like joining because the Big East fell apart, and it's like, now what are you going to do with your basketball team, Notre Dame? And they got the ACC deal to work out. And what they gave away for that makes it harder for them to join the Big Ten now. And they keep kicking the can down the road. Notre Dame has a quixotic but very serious desire to stay independent that the rest of us are all kind of ignoring every single time we talk about this. They will find a way. And the way it seems they're trying to find now, because what are you going to do? Not play the Big Ten when we have all of your rivals? So the way they're trying to do it now is to dip a toe in the Big Ten, use the Peacock network thing to make that happen, have that be part of the rights deal, so that they can, and that money should also come from that as well. Notre Dame wants their cake and eat it too. And the only way it stops happening is if the Big Ten says, join or die.
All right. So here's the other news item that came out yesterday. So the UC Board of Regents, they met and sort of echoing the sentiment that was previously expressed by Gavin Newsom, said that there might be some measures they can take to block UCLA from following through on joining the Big Ten. They said that, they did not relinquish their ability to act in on matters like this. They maintain them, even though they delegated, or they bestowed some of that ability upon the president. They maintain the right to exert that influence when they saw fit. And this might be one of those moments. They said all options, including blocking UCLA's departure, all options are on the table. What say you about that?
Does USC care?
I don't think USC cares. Did I say USC? I meant UCLA.
No,
UCLA.
Like UCLA, but like when they announced USC and UCLA, it was like, okay, we got USC and someone else. So, like, if USC doesn't care, then the Big Ten is just going to be like, all right, who's a private university? Stanford, and then there you go.
Let me read this quote real quick. This is from UC System Attorney Charlie Robinson to the Los Angeles Times yesterday. He said, it's important to understand that when the regents delegated authority to the president, they didn't give it away or lose it. Essentially, what they did was extend it such that authority was with the regents and the president, which, as I said before, which means they might want to step in and block this. When asked that question specifically, the attorney said all options are on the table. Is this just posturing? Ira's premise is this is just posturing to get Cal as a part of this deal. Do you guys buy that?
No. Welcome. Hey, everyone here in the Midwest, welcome to California politics. This is a part of the world that we've just been able to ignore and leave out there. But I know a few people who work in politics, and to a man, they say when you start getting into California politics, it's a whole different world. I don't even think it's about getting Cal into the Big Ten. I don't think it's about football necessarily. It's about voters, and elected people in California cannot afford to get Stanford grads mad at them. Cal grads mad at them. UC is it's a humongous system, and people are mad, especially people who are not invited, are mad about this, and it's a political thing right now. Just like people got super mad about gambling, about sports gambling, only when those companies kept on advertising so badly that everyone was like, "These ads have to stop," and then all of a sudden, every politician in the country cared. I think that's where that's coming from. It's California politics.
Brian?
I it's hard to predict. I mostly know about California housing politics. Which I know far too much about.
I open the door, Brian, if you want to walk in.
No. I think that Cal's a long shot in any possible Big Ten expansion, right? Because they don't bring anything. They don't bring football. They don't bring basketball. I'm sure they have some non-revenue sports that they're totally awesome at, but it doesn't really move the needle. So from a UC systems perspective, I guess it's like, does the departure of UCLA from the Pac-12 hurt Cal enough that you want to stop that? And does it not benefit UCLA more than that? I don't know. I have a hard time seeing them go through with blocking the move, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. All right, before we go, tell the folks one more time about Hail to the Victors 22, Seth.
Yeah, we just kind of opened the door for 1896 season because that's when the Big Ten was formed in the first place. And one of the questions at that moment was, what do we do about Notre Dame and Nebraska? And they looked at it and they said, let's just keep them from forming their own conference. But I mean, this stuff has been going on for a long time, and that's why we have a history section in Hail of the Victors, because this stuff comes up again. And the book is out. We've already sold half of them, so if you do want to get on it, especially if you want to get a print copy, you have to go to MGoBlog.com Hail22 right now and jump on that. I think we just passed 600.
That is awesome. All right, do I have to order my copy, or can I just get it from one of my fellas, one of my guys?
I can get you a copy.
We'll take care of you.
saying.
I'm not dropping off a box this year, though. It's there. The problem is I didn't get enough paper. To be honest, like I would have printed a lot more. It's just paper's insane this year. So
Gotcha. All right, fellas. Appreciate your time as always. We'll see you next week. The rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 W.